I saw Aliza Kelly, who's a famous celebrity astrologer, post a meme comparing June 2026 to July 2026. And I have to say, I felt it in my soul. And I think that it's really just setting the tone for what August is going to be like, because that kind of intensity that we see in this image for July is only ramping up in August. We ended July with generation defining astrology, the configuration of all of the outer planets together, the slower moving planets in harmonious aspects with one another, with the exception of Jupiter opposite Pluto. And that setup will continue to be activated as we move through August, as we move through eclipse season, and as the nodes change signs. So buckle up, because August is hot. Hey everybody, welcome back. I am Dana Solara. I'm an astrologer and spiritual coach, and we're here today to talk about the astrology of August 2026, which I'm going to argue is, you might fight me on this, but I think it's the most intense month of 2026. February was pretty wild too, but August is a big deal for many of the same reasons that February was a big deal. In February, we had Saturn and Neptune coming together at the early degrees of Aries, which was a big deal. And we had eclipse season happening. So right now, I want you to think back to February. What was going on? What was percolating? What was cooking? And probably it wasn't like a peak moment. It was more like something starting or something ending. So what was transitioning around February, maybe even March? What was going on for you? Because what's happening in August is a continuation of that. Why? Because we're going to have eclipses again. The setup for these eclipses, though, is different, and I would argue a little more loud, because this basket configuration that we talked about in the astrology of July, where we had Neptune, Pluto, Uranus, and Jupiter all in aspect to one another at 4 degrees of their current signs, that's continuing to get activated right now through the ongoing astrology and then through the eclipses as well. So in other words, whatever was planted in February, whatever got going in February is really taking shape now. It definitely coming into form with the basket configuration at the end of July, but we know eclipses are portals for change. They are openings and closings. They're like little wormholes. Well, not little, but they can make things change pretty rapidly. So that means August is going to be pretty consequential. Now, a thing about consequential quote unquote astrology that I want you to remember as we're talking about this: anytime we're talking about the cosmic weather like this removed from your personal natal chart, we're talking about more collective themes. And if you want to know how this is going to land for you, you should, 1, book a reading with an astrologer, but 2, if that's not something you can do right now, think about where it lands in your birth chart. You always want to try to apply this to your personal birth chart. So if you have any planets at around 4 degrees, and that's of any sign because of how many planets were involved, then your personal birth chart was aspected by the astrology of the end of July, and it will continue to get aspected as we move through August. That's what we're getting into, is the germination, the blooming, the fruiting. Maybe not fruiting quite yet, but something is growing in terms of the Leo parts of our chart, in terms of the Aquarius parts of our chart. Something is maybe coming to a close in the Pisces Virgo axis of our chart, really stepping forward into a new chapter. I called the astrology of July video a new reality, and I think in August that new reality is materializing a little bit more. You can see what's different since July 1st, I think. And whatever comes to mind when I pose that to you, what's different now that we're closer to the end of the month, you can start to understand what might be coming up for you as we move forward into August. So let's go ahead and get into the astrology of August. And to do this, I am going to show you something that I'm really excited about, which is a tool I've been creating called Astro Bestie. Astro Bestie weaves together your lived experience with the astrology of the moment, while also making astrology more accessible, more applicable, meaning it's easier for you to actually use and work with the astrology of the moment, and less anxiety inducing. Because frankly, when we listen to these cosmic weather forecasts that are very general, even horoscopes for rising signs, which are more specific but not specific to your birth chart, it can feel a little overwhelming. It can feel like, okay, but what does that mean for me? And we can get into this habit of consuming astrology content without it actually helping us. So I created Astro Bestie to help with all of those things. And so what I'm showing you here is the calendar feature where you can take a look at the upcoming astrological movements. You can toggle on your personal transits. You can toggle on when the moon changes signs. I'm going to make this just a little bigger for us. Void of course moons, and then there's journaling and task features and stuff. I'm just kind of showing you how cool it is because I'm really excited about it. But I'm going to turn off my personal transits, and I want to show you this calendar view really because it's a helpful way to look at the month as a whole before we get into the nuance of each week. All right. So as I scroll down here, I want to kind of show you what we're looking at. The beginning of the month is slow, which is, I don't know about you, I'm happy about it. I'm not upset about that because the end of July was a lot, and not in a bad way necessarily. It was just very active, very busy. And of course, if you have personal transits, active right now, it may not really land that way for you, but from a mundane high level point of view, there's not a lot happening here. We have Chiron stationing retrograde, the closing square of the lunar cycle here, and Venus entering Libra on the same day the sun trines Saturn. You can see the second week is where things get a little busier. The new moon eclipse in Leo is happening on the 12th. We'll talk again more about the energy leading up to this, the energy surrounding this eclipse and what it means. The following week is a little more quiet, but we are in eclipse season here, and so it's a big deal, and the nodes are going to enter their new signs. Now, I do have to say, I am using the mean node and not the true node. So you might have the nodes entering their new signs earlier than me, because I think based on the other calculation, they enter at the end of July. So depending on which calculation you use, you might have that differently, but they will be in Leo and Aquarius in August. By the 22nd, we're in Virgo season, and by the end of the month, Mercury will be in Virgo. So Mercury's going to be in Leo for the majority of August, which is, of course, where the new moon eclipse is happening. We have the full moon eclipse in Pisces happening on the 27th, the same day as the Mercury Cazimi, so that's fascinating. We're going to end the month with Jupiter trine Saturn. Now, what's important to say about this is that just because a transit perfects on a certain day doesn't mean that's the only day you'll feel it. So something like Jupiter trine Saturn, that's actually going to be in effect for most of the month, for a lot of the month anyway, because Saturn just stationed retrograde at the end of July, on the 26th. And so Saturn all throughout August is moving very, very, very slowly. And so this is just when the trine perfects, but it's really in effect for, I'm going to say, at least 2 weeks leading up to that. All right. So that's the big picture. It's eclipse season. It's the nodes into Leo and Aquarius. It's some oppositions and a couple other fun things as well. Virgo season and Mercury in Virgo, which I'm excited about. So with that, I'm ready to get into the details with you guys a little bit more. Let's go ahead and put the chart, the actual astrology chart, on the screen. And we'll begin with the first day that there's really a whole lot to talk about, which is going to be August 6th. And this is when Venus enters Libra and the sun trines Saturn. So the sun at 14 degrees, trining Saturn here, Saturn in the overcoming position. What does that mean? Saturn has the upper hand in this dynamic. Saturn's in fall and retrograde paradigm. A planet can be more or less resourced. And when a planet is in a sign that is antithetical to the way it operates, it's less resourced. It's in a place that it's not familiar with, in other words. And Saturn in Aries is that place for Saturn, and one of those places anyway. It's the lord of death and darkness and limits and boundaries, in the place of new beginnings, going first, courage, and light. And so it's a challenging place for Saturn to be. It can feel, at least in my experience of living this so far, it can feel like having to be humble, having to be wrong, having to start over, even though you thought you kind of knew what you were doing. It's really forcing us to be in a beginner's mind and to embrace that beginner's mindset and to, again, be humble about that and just accept that there's work to be done. There's things we have to learn. It also is very much like being in new territory, foreign territory, and feeling like you've got to really figure out on your own how to get through this. And it's very much about facing fear as well. When I think about the trine with the sun in its home sign here in Leo, despite the fact that Saturn's got the upper hand, this kind of facing fear energy, this I'm in this new territory and I don't really understand how to get out of this. I don't feel comfortable here. I don't know what I'm doing here. This does feel helpful. It feels like, because the sun has dignity, the sun is in its home sign, it's strong, and the sun is all about the spirit, the individual, your unique brilliance, and what you're here to do. On a more mundane level, the sun is about leaders and authority figures, father figures perhaps. So for me, it's a little bit about grace. It's a little bit about admitting when you've been wrong, perhaps. Maybe most of all, it's about believing in yourself. It's this feeling of, yeah, you know what? I am in a strange place. I am in foreign territory. I've never done this before, very Saturn and Aries, but I can do it. I believe in myself. I can do it. I'm going to try and I can do it. And so it feels pretty helpful and hopeful, especially because Venus will, by the end of the day, be in her home sign Libra. This is a big dignity upgrade for Venus moving into Libra. Venus is in fall in Virgo. This is a place where she feels very out of sorts and out of place, and it's not familiar territory because Venus's power is to connect and collaborate and find peace and connection. And Virgo is about doing things yourself. It's this place of analysis and precision and independence, and that's not really Venus, right? So once Venus moves into Libra, which is one of her home signs, she's much more able to do what she wants to do. And so this feels very, very helpful for our relationships, for any kind of interpersonal dynamics that we need to finesse, for any kind of deals we need to make. We think more of Mercury for commerce and things like that, but Venus is very much about the handshake moment, the hey, let's work together. Hey, I have this, you have that. How can we help each other? Venus is going to station retrograde in the fall, and this is going to be a big deal. One of the more important moments in the back half of the year. She's going to station retrograde in Scorpio later in the fall. By the time we get to 22 degrees and 51 arc minutes of Libra, which is actually on August 31st, we're in the pre-retrograde shadow, which means basically by September 1st, we're in a review moment with Venus. We're in a stop, pause, look back, what's really important to us kind of moment. And so August, essentially, long story short, is the best moment for Venus that we're going to have for the rest of 2026. In fact, I'll just show you this real quick. So she's going to station retrograde October 3rd. She'll station direct November 13th. She will be back in Libra for that. But again, she has stationed. So she's slow moving. She's still moving back over the path that she was retrograding on. And so she's not really past the retrograde yet. And she won't be out of that post-retrograde shadow until about December 17th. And she won't be out of Scorpio until January 7th. And Scorpio is a sign of Venus's detriment. So again, all that to say, August is the best month for Venus for the rest of 2026. So if you're a Taurus or Libra rising, that's something you're going to want to track. So let's come back to August. Because that was really all there was to say about the first week. We've got that nice trine and Venus entering. So August 6th feels like a very constructive, helpful day. And even going into the weekend, we can kind of count on that energy to help us build. Then we move into the second week of August, which is quite different. Mercury's going to enter Leo on the 9th, and this isn't a huge deal, but it's important to note that Mercury is co-present with the eclipse, especially after the Mercury retrograde that we experienced in July. Very much about processing emotions and giving language to what we're feeling, what we're needing to feel safe, secure, and comfortable. Now we're in more of a fiery moment, a moment of going forth and doing. It's like doing, not thinking, right? Whereas Mercury in Cancer, very much about like the felt sense of things. So it's a tone shift for the way we're thinking, the way we're articulating our ideas, the way we're engaging in conversation, the way we're learning. And that's flavoring the eclipse. Now, there's a couple of things happening prior to the eclipse. I'm going to go to the 10th that we want to pay attention to because they are going to color the eclipse. One of those is Venus trine Pluto. So here's Venus, here's Pluto. There they are trining. Love this for a bright idea, for a partnership, for a connection that generates power. It's like we're stronger together, and there's a way in which someone else might mirror back to us our power in a way that we hadn't seen before. And so this feels like a really nice boost and feeling seen and supported, and also maybe reminded of our power on a level that maybe we needed someone else to mirror back to us. And we might be doing that for someone else. Venus is going to oppose Neptune. So again, what I said at the top of this video, the outer planet configuration of July is getting activated all August long by planets as they're moving through this part of the zodiac over here, not just Leo, but also Venus in Libra too. That feels a little like getting high on your own supply, this opposition between Venus and Neptune. And what I mean by that is like somebody's gassing you up so much with this trine maybe that you're like a little delusional. It could be. It's not a great time to publicly start something new. It's not a great time to go hard on something that is like an unchangeable decision. Like maybe no tattoos this week, just for a week, just for eclipse season even. This energy is waning by the time we get to the eclipse, but it is happening 2 days before the eclipse is perfected. So it's something that we want to just take note of. Keep your feet on the ground. That's always good advice for a Neptune square opposition. In this case, we're talking about an opposition, and I think it's easy for us to maybe get caught up in the moment right now and perhaps even be a little naive. That's a shadow side of Neptune. So just, again, no major decisions. Don't open any credit cards, things like that during this time. Now on the 11th, Mars is going to enter Cancer, and that is also quite a tone shift. We're talking about dignity a lot this month because we have planets changing signs and really affecting the way in which they can act and do what they want to do. That's what dignity tells us, is how resourced that planet is, and as a result, to what extent can it behave and do the things it wants to do. Well, Mars in Cancer is in fall. If you think back to January through April of 2025, Mars was retrograde in Cancer. I recall it as being quite a slog. I had a lot of work to do, and it all felt very laborious. It felt hard. And Cancer is my 10th house, so it was a lot about my work for me personally. Now, Mars is not going to be retrograde here, but I'm bringing up that time frame because it might help you remember what Mars in Cancer is like for you. Not to say it'll be exactly the same, because it never is, but it might echo certain themes and it might feel kind of similar to how things felt at that time. So Mars moving into Cancer, this is challenging. So why is Mars uncomfortable in Cancer? Mars is single-minded. It wants to go fight, win. It's assertive, it's aggressive, it's competitive, it's very focused on itself, it's passionate. In Cancer, Cancer is not aggressive. It's not assertive. It's the crab, right? It sidesteps and it's very passive aggressive. So here we have our will, our force, our drive being sort of muted and kind of coming through sideways, coming out in ways that maybe we wouldn't expect or wouldn't want. Interestingly, it's also not a time where, Mars things are muted. When I think about Mars in Cancer, I think about someone who is extremely passionate to the point where they get emotional about it and it can kind of cloud their judgment. If you think about the competitive, aggressive, assertive nature of Mars, you really do need to be single-minded to be a warrior. You need to not think about the other person's feelings. If you're in a competition of any kind, you need to be single-mindedly focused on winning. right? And Cancer is very much about safety and protection and nurturance. And it really doesn't want to hurt other people's feelings. So it's tougher to be assertive during this time, perhaps. It's tougher to even know what's worth asserting. And it certainly could be a more emotional time where it seems like every little thing is getting to you. And so we want to note that this is the kind of energy we're working with in the Cancer part of our chart. And if you think about the transformation of Cancer, right? We had Jupiter in Cancer from June 2025 to the end of June 2026. Jupiter's exalted in Cancer, which indicates a time of healing and restoration and building a deep foundation of safety and security in the part of your chart that Cancer activates, whatever house topics that activates for you. Mars here is totally different. I heard somebody once describe Mars in Cancer as like It, Stephen King's book It, that there's some kind of like monster under the bed, so to speak. And it doesn't have to be that dramatic or that scary, but there is something about it's not safe. Like what has once felt safe does not feel safe. And on a more positive side, it could really be about fighting for what you believe in and protecting what needs to be protected. So there's that, and that's happening one day before the eclipse. Notice too that Mercury's opposite Pluto on the 11th, Mercury's trining Neptune, and Venus is trining Uranus. So again, all of those outer planets still being activated as we get to the eclipse. Let's put the actual eclipse on the screen for us on August 12th, 12:36 Central Time. Here it is, 20 degrees of Leo. I've been doing a lot of thinking about the decans, and I'm going to link a video that I made back in June or July, I don't remember now, about Jupiter in Leo, where we really talked about the Leo decans. The decans really help us get a deeper nuance on what a particular part of a zodiac sign is like. And because we have a stellium in Leo, I think it's helpful to do. We've got the sun and the moon in the third decan of Leo, which is double ruled by Mars. Each decan has two rulers, one from the triplicity scheme, one from the Chaldean order. If that sounds like gibberish to you, don't worry about it. More on that in another video. The main thing is it's a very Marsy part of Leo. Okay, it's a very Mars, go fight, win, aggression, assertion, passion, drive, sex, very Mars as well. So what does it mean that we have a new moon eclipse in this part of Leo? We are ready to stand up for something. If Leo is about the individual, about asserting yourself, about salvation, about shining your unique brilliance, there's something about being unafraid here that I really love. And feels very much like, no, I know what's worth fighting for now. I know what's worth me putting my identity on the line, so to speak. I'm going to put myself out there. I was reminded of Hamilton for some reason. And it's funny because I never even finished watching the musical. I watched it on Disney Plus. I started watching it and I never finished. But it reminded me of that line, I'm not going to throw away my shot, or I'm not throwing away my shot. But it feels like that to me, especially because who else is here? Jupiter. Who else is here? Mercury. Okay, so Jupiter being about faith, hope, trust. And the first decan of Leo is co-ruled by the sun and Saturn. So there is something important about facing fear because the sun shines a light. The sun is the individual. It's your soul, your spirit, and Saturn is fear, among other things, death, limits, endings. So there's something to me with this eclipse about having trust, Jupiter, faith, Jupiter, belief, Jupiter, hope, Jupiter, in what you're trying to do in yourself, really. And Mercury is the words, it's the ideas, it's the articulation, it's the details. So this eclipse feels like a seeding point of being able to speak up, stand up for yourself, to say, this is who I am and this is what I'm doing. And facing some kind of fear in the process. There's a lot that's active here. That's what I'm trying to say. And it's kind of building up to this point. The 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, even the 13th pay attention. Pay attention to what's coming up for you. Where are you feeling like, no, I need to speak up about this. I need to stand up and say my piece about this. I'm not afraid anymore to talk about this. I'm not afraid anymore to put myself out there in this way. I really think everything about the chart is kind of saying that, but in its own unique way, this second week of August. Now, on the 15th, Mercury's going to conjoin Jupiter. This is a quicker thing, but it's interesting to me because we're still in Leo. This is where the new moon just happened. We are now in the second decan of Leo, which is double ruled by Jupiter. Okay, so in both rulership systems, the second decan of Leo, the second chunk of Leo, is ruled by Jupiter. What's Jupiter about? Faith, hope, expansion, belief, possibility, cohesion, bringing things together, luck. And so Jupiter is strong as fuck here, and Mercury is here as well. Mercury and Jupiter, you may not realize, are actually very much opposite because Jupiter's the big picture and Mercury's the details. So with these two coming together, it feels like synergy. It feels like the stars literally aligning, right? Like they are literally aligning because it's a conjunction, but that metaphorical way of that expression. But I'm talking about the metaphorical sense of the expression here of things are working out. I see how the dots connect and I see the bigger picture and I'm making it happen. Something is really coming into form and shape here. Don't discount either the fact that the moon is going to conjoin Venus. That's very, very quick, but we know we're coming off a new moon here and it was an eclipse. So this is the waxing moon here. And conjoining a Venus in her home sign of Libra, like there are people here to help you. Support is here. Your cheering section is here. And you might be the cheering section for somebody else. But there's something important about like the people that are surrounding you at this time and having what you need to make it happen. Okay. So that's the second week of August. I'm going to go ahead and take us to the 17th, which is the Monday of the third week of August. We have a couple things going on that are quicker, but worth noting. So the first is Mars square Neptune. Okay, that is exact a little earlier in the day on the 17th. We also have Mercury trine Saturn and Venus sextile Jupiter. Okay, so this sextile is like, you might not notice it if you're not paying attention. And I want you to notice it because it's beautiful. Venus is dignified here. Venus has her strength, her power in her home sign. We already know Jupiter has dignity because Jupiter's in a double Jupiter ruled decan, the place where Jupiter is strongest in Leo. So it feels very helpful. Your cheering crowd is here. The people that are here to support you are present. So be loud, be bold, put yourself out there. And at the same time, this square might be the dominant energy here. It's a square between Mars in Cancer and Neptune in Aries. It feels like, honestly, it feels like a troll. It feels like you're doing your thing, you're out there, you're getting all this support, and someone's like, I don't like you. You're ugly. Like someone just kind of makes you feel uncomfortable and like throws you off your game a little bit. And it, of course, may not be that confronting. I'm reminded of that image in The Princess Bride where she's like, is it a dream about her getting married? And the older woman, right, comes out and she's like, boo, boo. It feels like that to me. And yet there is lots of support here. So don't listen to the haters. Okay, that's my advice for this moment in time. Trust where you're going and stand on your own 2 feet. So much of this Leo energy for me that we're moving through in August is about learning how to be unafraid to be yourself. That really is the theme of the whole month for me. And you cannot do that if you're listening to everybody else's feedback and taking it personally. There's a difference between being able to receive feedback, which we do need to do because we need to interact and engage and get along with other people. And sometimes we are wrong. So sometimes we do need that feedback. And other times it's not needed and it serves to undermine our belief in ourselves. So I want you to kind of notice that line, that sometimes fine line between being totally sure of yourself, like that's the shadow of Leo, is I'm right, everybody else is wrong, and everybody else can get fucked. Like, we don't want to go there. But we also don't want to listen to the haters. We don't want to feel insecure. Very much Mars and Cancer for me. That's like a feeling of insecurity. We don't want to allow insecurity to breed because someone doesn't like what we're doing. The reality is you're never going to have 100% of people on board with what you're doing. There's always going to be people who want to criticize and people who don't agree with your approach, with your beliefs, your paradigms, whatever the case might be. Not everybody's going to like you. And this might be a good time to find some acceptance around that. And we have the support to do that, I think. If we can just really focus on believing in ourselves and listening to the people who are here for us, not the people who just want to cut us down. On the 18th, if you're using the mean nodes, the nodes move into Leo and Aquarius. So that's a big shift. Big shift. We're moving from a mutable axis of Pisces and Virgo to a fixed axis of Aquarius and Leo. The north node is increase. The south node is decrease. So what's notable to me about this is not so much just the nodes changing signs, but the fact that the sun is going to conjoin the south node just before it moves into Virgo at the end of the week and at the anaretic degree. The anaretic degree is the last degree of any zodiac sign, the 29th degree, and it's got this energy of being a little dangerous, of being a little almost violent. It can be a little destructive, in other words. So the sun conjoining the south node, it feels like questioning leadership. It feels like a teenager saying, fuck you, dad, because the sun can be about father figures, but take that as a metaphor, right? I mean, maybe that's literally happening in your life, who knows? But it's more of the felt sense that we're not taking authority at face value anymore. Just because you're in an authority position doesn't mean you're worth listening to, doesn't mean you're a good leader. And on a personal level, maybe we're releasing some beliefs around what it takes to be a good leader and finding our own sense of what we believe good leadership to mean in our lives. At the same time, Venus is going to be opposing Saturn. This Venus-Saturn opposition happens on the 21st, and Sun conjunct the North Node happens on the 22nd. So just so you have like the dates on that. But Venus opposite Saturn, yeah, it does feel challenging, but it's fascinating because you have a Venus that's in her home sign, powerful, able to really find a happy middle ground for everybody, opposing this Saturn that's kind of saturated in fear and blinded by the light, so to speak. We're talking about the Lord of Darkness in the sign of the spring equinox. So you might have to have a hard conversation here. But Venus in Libra is very much about diplomacy and, again, like very Two of Cups, finding the handshake moment. Where can we agree? I wonder if we're not feeling nervous or scared in some way that we're not going to be able to find that middle ground, that what we want is maybe too much, we're asking too much, we're wanting too much. And so I think honest communication, really any Saturn transit, I think honesty is key. That might sound weird, but Saturn in the traditional lineage can be about feigned appearances, F-E-I-G-N, meaning false, and like pretending you're something that you're not. So there might be an impulse to sugarcoat around this time, and I would say don't. Anytime we have a Saturn transit, especially a Saturn that is struggling this much, retrograde and in fall, we want to keep it real. We want to keep it very real, because if we lie or we sugarcoat, the truth is going to come out eventually. And it's better to be honest up front. So don't lie around this time, even if it feels like you really, really want to or need to. I really like on the 23rd, the sun is going to trine Chiron. Now, Chiron has stationed retrograde by this point. The sun's at 0 degrees Virgo. Chiron's at 0 degrees Taurus. Chiron entered Virgo earlier in 2026, not that long ago. In fact, when? Let's get a date for that of Chiron Taurus. It was June 19th. So coming back to where we're at. So we've had Chiron in Taurus for just a little bit, but what's it been like for you? What's the shift from Chiron in Aries to Chiron in Taurus been like? This is an activation point, and it's a helping moment. It's a moment where we might start to feel in our bodies a little bit more where we're holding the tension of Chiron. Chiron is the chronic wound, the pain that we feel that teaches us something. So it's not just pain for the sake of pain at all. It's in fact the pain that helps us learn and grow, and that is the wisdom we're meant to give back to the world. Chiron lessons are the lessons we're meant to teach. Knowing that the sun is in Virgo, which is about the details, it's about understanding the schematic of something. I feel like there's some way in which, especially because these are earth signs, that we can understand something on a felt level, a felt sense, like some kind of somatic knowledge or somatic wisdom that helps us get a little more clear on what details do need to be attended to. There's something like that where we can gain the wisdom of the pain a little bit and understand the underpinnings of it and why it's even there in the first place, which is in itself quite healing. Knowing too that Virgo is definitely an energy of healing. And I think that's because Mercury is all about the details, and healing is about understanding the specifics of what we need in a given moment. So I like that moment. That's on the 23rd. This takes us to the 25th of August, where Mercury is going to enter Virgo. Mercury is at home and exalted in Virgo, which is to say it's strong as fuck. This is the strongest place for Mercury in the zodiac. And Mercury is going to do the same thing that the sun did. It's going to conjoin the south node, and then it's going to trine Chiron. So really like the 21st through, let's say the 26th, we've got these kinds of themes of kind of revealing, like pulling back the curtain, I would say, around Leo themes, like what is really worth fighting for and what's not, what's really true about us and what's not, what really makes a leader and what's just something we thought was good leadership but really isn't. On a very mundane level, I could see this moment being about a heightened questioning of leadership, more vocal questioning of leadership, and perhaps like actual changes of leadership. So we'll see what happens on that front. But on a personal level, like I said, it feels like we're getting the language, we're getting the medicine for what hurts us, and really a taste of what we're in for with Chiron in Taurus. Chiron is going to move out of Taurus for a little bit later in the year, so this is a good time to just be paying attention to what Chiron in Taurus is like so that you can have a sense of what it will be like moving forward into the future. Now this takes us to the second eclipse, which is going to happen on the 27th. I'm actually going to put the eclipse on the screen for us. This is a full moon eclipse in Pisces just after a Mercury cazimi. So what is a Mercury cazimi? It's a conjunction between the sun and Mercury. A cazimi is just a conjunction with the sun, and Mercury already has a lot of oomph here because Mercury is in its home sign. Check this out. The first decan of Virgo is co-ruled by Mercury and the sun. So both Mercury and the sun are very, very strong here. This is a full moon in Pisces, ruled by Jupiter in Leo. Now, we talked about Jupiter being very, very strong already in the second decan of Leo. It can't see the moon or the sun here, so, it's not as helpful as it could be, but it is still there, and it's still in the mix of this astrology. I want to talk more about this cazimi, though, because it's adding a very Virgo element to this full moon. Like, despite the fact that the moon is in Pisces, which is Jupiter's sign, again, all about faith, trust, hope, surrender, opening yourself up, acceptance, allowing the universe, right? It's a letting go energy in Pisces. Virgo is very much about, I'm thinking about manipulation, but not in the negative sense. I'm thinking about somebody that's like really into a ship in a bottle or puzzles or building little small villages. That's so unique and niche, but that's also very Virgo. It's very much about precision, details, going deep, and it's highly intelligent. And so this full moon feels like an interesting release, because that's what full moons are. It's a release of your grip, but also not. The moon is saying we're opening, we're surrendering, we're releasing something. But this is saying, I get it. I see the puzzle. I see how it works. I know how to do this. So I wonder if the release doesn't come from the fact that there's some kind of new level of understanding. There's something has clicked into place. The pieces have come together, whether that's in your mind or in, physically, something is connecting and working now. I'm thinking about like someone building a robot, and this is the moment where you plug it in and now it works and you can see how it all kind of works. And so, of course, because we're talking about the eclipse, the main event here is this Pisces Virgo axis. However, Jupiter is the ruler, and Jupiter will be moving into a trine with Saturn. Now, the trine, as I said at the beginning of the episode, is exact on August 31st, but it's very much in effect. It's in the application range. Jupiter is moving forward in the zodiac while Saturn moves retrograde in the zodiac. So by the 31st, that trine will be perfected, but it is very much a part of the eclipse here. And what that tells us is we are very much in new territory here. Again, this is kind of echoing the themes of August all month long, which is I'm standing up for what I believe in. That's Jupiter in Leo. I'm betting on myself, Jupiter in Leo. I'm not going to be afraid to be different and to go into new territory. I'm not going to be afraid to go first and try something totally different anymore. I might be scared, but I'm going to do it anyway. I think do it scared is a great slogan for August as well. And then you have this where it's like, I see how the puzzle works. I know where all the pieces are. I know how to put them together. And I'm also going to trust and surrender and allow myself to be held in this fated moment and let the universe carry me. And so that's August. It's a lot, guys. And I'm happy to report that it will slow down after this. Eclipse season is always an inflection point of the year when we're looking at the year ahead. We always have 2 eclipse seasons, and this is the second one of 2026. So the big news after this are the remaining retrogrades, which are going to be Venus and Mercury retrograde at the same time. That's a big deal. But for now, we're going to get through eclipse season. We're going to believe in ourselves. That's my advice to you is believe in yourself. Do it scared. Don't listen to the haters. Should they arise, don't listen to the trolls, should they arise. Be open to receiving the feedback, but don't let it undermine what you know you're here to do. I really think by the end of August, we're going to have a much stronger sense of belief in ourselves and perhaps a lot more clarity around what it is we're here to do. We might make mistakes, but the main thing is don't be afraid to go where you've never gone before and bet on yourself. And I think you'll find by the end of August that you're a lot more confident for it. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments. If you haven't subscribed already, what are you doing? Subscribe. You made it to the end of the video. You should subscribe. I hope this was very, very helpful. I'm wishing you a lovely August, a peaceful eclipse season. That seems like an oxymoron, but to the extent that you can. And that you find within you your unique brilliance this August, and you are not afraid to let your light shine. Okay? Love you guys. I'll see you next time. Bye.